Admiral Vexenar stood before the massive display screen in the Federation High Command Chamber. His four eyes blinked rapidly as he watched the red markers spread across the star map like a disease-consuming healthy flesh. Each marker represented a Terran warship. There were hundreds of them now. The humans had arrived in force, and the galaxy would never be the same again. The chamber was silent, except for the soft hum of machinery. Around the circular table sat 12 of the most decorated commanders in the Galactic Federation. Species from across 1,000 worlds had gathered here. The Velthari with their crystalline bodies, the Morvax with their thick armored hides, the Sonori whose minds could process tactical data faster than any computer. All of them had led fleets to victory against countless enemies. All of them had conquered star systems and brought rebellious worlds to their knees. None of them wanted to speak first. Commander Thralvok of the Third Fleet finally broke the silence. His voice was heavy with exhaustion and something that none of them wanted to name. Fear. Pure and simple fear. "The Terran fleet has crossed into the neutral zone," he said. "They destroyed the listening posts at Station Kappa 7. 400 personnel. Gone in seconds." "How many ships did they use?" asked Admiral Vexenar. "3. The silence returned. It pressed down on them like the weight of a dying star. Admiral Vexenar remembered the first contact with humans. It had happened just 30 cycles ago. The Federation had discovered Earth during a routine expansion survey. A small blue planet in an unremarkable system. The inhabitants were primitive by galactic standards. They had barely begun exploring their own solar system. They had crude rockets and fragile space stations. The Federation Council had laughed when they saw the assessment reports. Another species of soft-skinned mammals with delusions of importance. They would be conquered easily. Their resources would be harvested. Their population would serve as labor for Federation mining operations. It was the natural order of things. That decision had been the greatest mistake in Federation history. The humans had not surrendered when the invasion fleet arrived. They had not begged for mercy or offered tribute. Instead, they had fought. They fought with weapons that should not have worked against Federation shields. They fought with tactics that no species had ever attempted. They adapted and evolved their strategies in real time. What worked against them once never worked again. The first invasion fleet was destroyed within a single planetary rotation. The Federation sent a second fleet, larger this time, better armed. They burned 3 of Earth's major cities from orbit before the humans could respond. The humans responded anyway. Within 2 cycles, those same humans had reverse-engineered Federation technology. They built their own warships. They improved upon Federation designs with modifications that Federation engineers said were impossible. They developed weapons that could crack planet cores and shields that could withstand sustained bombardment from entire fleets. Then they came for the Federation. Commander Selmyra of the 7th Fleet placed her resignation chip on the table. The small crystal device caught the light and glittered like a tear. She was Velthari. Her people were known for their courage. They had once held the line against the Drath Horde for 300 cycles without reinforcement. Her ancestors had died standing rather than kneeling. "I will not lead my ships against the Terrans," she said. Her voice was calm, but her crystalline body had darkened with shame. "I have studied their combat records. I have watched footage of their engagements. I have seen what they do to enemy fleets. Cowardice is not becoming of a Federation commander," said High Marshal Groth. He was old even by Morvax standards. His hide was scarred from 100 battles. He had never retreated from any enemy in his entire career. "It is not cowardice," Commander Selmyra replied. "It is reality. The Terrans do not fight like other species. They do not follow patterns or protocols. They improvise. They sacrifice individual ships to achieve tactical advantage. They perform maneuvers that kill their own crews from acceleration stress alone. And they keep fighting." She stood and walked to the display screen. With a gesture, she pulled up footage from the Battle of Korvax Prime. The gathered commanders watched in silence as a Terran destroyer ran directly through the bridge section of a Federation dreadnought. The destroyer was destroyed in the impact. The crew of 60 Terrans died instantly, but the dreadnought lost navigation and crashed into 2 other Federation ships. 3 ships destroyed for the cost of 1. No other species does this, Commander Selmyra said. No other species can do this. The Terrans call it acceptable losses. They calculate how many of their own people must die to achieve victory, and they accept those numbers. Their commanders give orders that guarantee the death of their subordinates, and their subordinates obey without question. All soldiers accept the possibility of death in battle, High Marshal Groth said. The possibility, yes. But the Terrans accept the certainty. They plan for it. They build their tactics around it. They consider their own deaths to be resources that can be spent for tactical gain. Commander Selmyra returned to her seat. I have 500,000 crew members in my fleet. I will not spend their lives against an enemy that cannot be defeated through conventional means. Another resignation chip clattered onto the table. Then another. Then 5 more. Admiral Vexinar watched as his command structure collapsed before his eyes. These were the finest military minds in the galaxy. They had destroyed empires and crushed rebellions. They had stood firm against every threat the universe had thrown at them, and they were terrified of the humans. You speak of their tactical behavior, said Commander Jack Sori of the Sonori Collective. His words emerged slowly as his vast intellect processed the situation. But you have not mentioned their psychology. That is what truly makes them dangerous. He connected his neural interface to the display system and projected his analysis directly into the minds of everyone present. Images and data flowed through their consciousness. Battle statistics, survival rates, psychological profiles of captured Terran soldiers. The humans have a concept they call spite, Commander Jack Sori explained. It is the desire to harm an enemy even at great cost to oneself. Even when no tactical advantage can be gained, even when defeat is certain. They will fight not to win but to ensure their enemy suffers. He showed them the final transmission from the Federation garrison at Velter Station. Terran Marines had boarded the station after 3 days of brutal fighting. The garrison commander had offered surrender. The Federation forces were outnumbered and outgunned. There was no shame in accepting honorable terms. The Terran commander had refused. You burned our cities, the human had said. You killed our children. There will be no surrender. There will be no mercy. There will be only ash. The station recordings showed what happened next. Even the hardened commanders in the chamber flinched at the images. Commander Jack Sori removed another resignation chip and placed it on the table. The Sonori Collective has calculated the probable outcomes of engaging the Terran fleet in open combat. Across all scenarios and all possible tactical variations, the result is the same: complete destruction of Federation forces. Not defeat, destruction. The Terrans do not take prisoners from species that have wronged them. They do not accept surrender. They continue fighting until nothing remains. Admiral Vexinar felt his hope dying. He had served the Federation for over 200 cycles. He had believed in its mission and its power. He had been confident that nothing in the galaxy could challenge its supremacy. He had been wrong. "What would you have us do?" he asked. His voice sounded old and tired even to his own ears. "Abandon our posts? Let the Terrans take our worlds without resistance?" "I would have us negotiate," Commander Selmyra said. "The humans are not unreasonable. They have made alliances with species that did not participate in the invasion of Earth. The Nexari trade with them freely. The Quilix have signed mutual defense treaties. The humans punish their enemies without mercy, but they reward their friends with equal generosity. The Council will never agree to negotiate," Admiral Vexinar said. "They see it as weakness. Then the Council can lead the fleet themselves. The words hung in the air like a death sentence. I, Marshal Groth, had remained silent through most of the discussion. Now he rose slowly from his seat. His massive frame cast a shadow across the entire table. For a moment, Admiral Vexenar thought he would denounce the others for their cowardice. He thought the old warrior would demand that they fulfill their duty regardless of the cost. Instead, High Marshal Groth reached into his belt pouch and removed his own resignation chip. He held it in his scarred hand and stared at it for a long moment. "I have fought every enemy the galaxy has produced," he said. "I have never known fear, but I have learned wisdom. And wisdom tells me that some enemies cannot be defeated through force alone." He placed his chip on the table. "The Terrans fight like they have nothing to lose. And in truth, they do not. We took everything from them: their security, their trust, their innocence. We showed them that the universe was hostile and cruel. We taught them that other species would come for their home and their children without provocation or mercy." He turned to face the display screen. The red markers of the Terran fleet had advanced further. They were 3 systems away now. Soon they would reach Federation core territory. "We created our own destroyers," High Marshal Groth continued. "We took a species that knew only peace and taught them war. We burned their world, and they rose from the ashes stronger than before. We gave them enemies to hate, and they learned to hate better than any species in history." He walked toward the chamber exit. At the door he paused and looked back at the gathered commanders. "I will not throw my soldiers against the storm we created. I will not ask them to die fighting an enemy we made. Let the politicians and bureaucrats face the consequences of their decisions. Let them explain to the Terran admirals why their cities burned. Let them beg for the mercy they refused to show." He left the chamber without another word. One by one, the remaining commanders followed. They left their resignation chips glittering on the table like fallen stars. Admiral Vexenar sat alone in the empty chamber and watched the red markers advance across the star map. The Terran fleet was coming, and there was no one left willing to stand against them. He thought about the humans he had studied, their short lives, their fragile bodies, their remarkable capacity for both creation and destruction. They had gone from primitive rockets to galaxy-spanning fleets in a single generation. They had transformed tragedy into fuel and vengeance into purpose. The Federation had awakened something terrible, something that would not sleep again until its rage was satisfied. Admiral Vexenar reached into his own pouch and removed his resignation chip. He placed it on the table with the others. Then he composed a message to the Federation Council. It was simple and direct. Find someone else to die for your mistakes. The fleet will not follow you into the darkness you created. He transmitted the message and walked out of the chamber. Behind him, the display screen continued its silent countdown. The red markers moved closer with every passing moment. The humans were coming, and the galaxy would learn the price of awakening humanity's wrath.